Now, to make this natural fermented grape juice wine, I'll be using the following. I've got 1 gallon of 100% grape juice with no preservatives. I have 1 pound of table grapes. In this particular case, I'm using organic grapes. Gives me a better chance of having a lot more active yeast on the skins of the grapes. I'll be using 2 cups of sugar, just plain granulated table sugar. I'll be using the juice of 1/4 of a lemon, which is going to act as our acid blend substitute. I need 1 black tea bag, which is going to act as our tannin substitute, which is going to provide a little bit of astringency to our wine at the back end. It would be helpful, although not essential, if you have some straining bags. We're going to need a fermenter that has a wide mouth opening so that we can get our straining bags into. Something that's got something nice and big like that. Now, if you don't have a nice fancy looking fermenter like this, you can always use a standard bucket like this. We're going to need a secondary fermenter, carboy, jug, demijohn, take your pick, because after about a week or so of primary fermentation, we're going to move everything over into our secondary container to continue on with secondary fermentation. We're going to need an airlock with bung for our secondary fermenter and also one for a primary fermenter. Although not required, it would be nice to have a hydrometer with testing tube to determine our starting gravity, which is the amount of sugar that's in our juice at the start, so that we can compare that with the amount of sugar remaining at the end of fermentation, so that we can then determine how much alcohol is present in the wine. And of course, last but certainly not least, we want to make sure that all of our equipment has been properly cleaned and sanitized. In this case, I'll be using Starsan to do the sanitization, and it will be in a spray bottle for the most part. And if you are using spray bottles, you might want to label your spray bottles so that you don't confuse it, or anyone else, confusing it with something else that might, do them harm. And that's what I'm going to be using to make this wine. Now, since we really don't know what's done what on these grapes while they were growing on the vine, let's just go ahead and give them a quick rinse. Don't need to scrub them, because that's where our natural yeast is coming from. But we will at least try and make an attempt to get these grapes a bit cleaner than what they were. Now, in a small pot, let's go ahead and pour in roughly 1/4 of a cup. No need to be precise. Of our grape juice in. And let's drop our tea bag in. And let's bring this up to a simmer. And now that our tannin substitute mixture has come to a simmer, we can go ahead and turn off the stove. Put a lid on. And let this come down to room temperature. All right, let's go ahead and get our grapes off the vine. And we want to make sure that we get good grapes here. Anything that doesn't look like something you would want to put in your mouth, those are the ones we don't want to put in our wine. All right. Now, the next thing I want to do is that I want to give these grapes, get back here. Is I want to give these grapes a rough chop and then get them into our straining bags. Now, if you happen to have one of these, that would make life a whole lot easier. But that's going to be the process. Give them a rough chop, get them in the bags. All right, with our grapes now in the bag, let's go ahead and tie these off. Yeah, set that aside. Now, since we're making 1 gallon, or in my case, I'm actually going to make 4 liters, what I need to do in order to make room for the sugar is to pour off 2 cups of juice or thereabouts. If you've got a funnel, go ahead and use it. And go ahead and pour that in one of our containers of juice. All right. Go ahead and put our cap back on, nice and tight. And let's go ahead and dissolve all that sugar. Okay. Let's get ready for the next step. Let's get our quarter of a lemon wedge ready. Now, if you have a strainer, go ahead and make use of that. Try not to get any seeds in there, if it can be helped. And just go ahead and give it a good squeeze. You don't need to get every last of a drop. And while we're at it, now would be a good time to go ahead and add in our straining bags. And there was quite a bit of grape juice left, so we'll go ahead and pour that in. And put our lid back on. All right, I'm going to give this one last little stir. Put the lid back on. And then I am going to take a hydrometer reading. All right, looks like that initial hydrometer reading is coming in at 1.102. Now, this particular fermenter does come with its own built-in airlock. However, I'm going to swap that out and use a standard airlock that it also comes with, just so I can determine when fermentation has actually begun. I've inserted an airlock into its little mini bong that comes with the fermenter and put that in the hole where the built-in airlock used to be. I filled up the fermenter up to its levels with a little bit of diluted star sand and water. And with that being done, ready for the next step. All right, it's now time to label our creation with a few descriptions. We are making, go ahead and get it on there, right? We are making a natural ferment grape. We started it on this date, and our original gravity reading started out at 1.102. Now, 3 days later, it was a slow ferment to begin, but basically it has now begun to actively ferment. We've got a pretty good layer of CO2-based foam sitting in our fermenter, and our airlock has begun bubbling away at a pretty decent pace, letting us know that CO2 gas is being released and going through the airlock and out. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and remove our straining bag, because the whole purpose of those table grapes was to make use of the yeast that was on the skins of the grapes. And since we no longer need it, we can go ahead and remove it. Let it drain a little bit. and put our cap back on. And what we want to do now for the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 days is to go ahead and let fermentation continue in this fermenter, at least until some of the foam has begun to dissipate. It's no longer fermenting as actively as it is now. Because what we have now is we've got a lot of CO2 in this space in our fermenter that we want to make sure that later on this CO2 layered is not replaced by oxygen, which would then start to degrade our wine, which is one of the reasons why we put it in our secondary carboy. Now, the thing about transferring it into our secondary carboy is that we can bring the level up all the way up to nearly the top. And then all we have to do is be less concerned about the small amount of oxygen that may develop in our carboy later on. Initially, it's just going to be CO2 protecting our wine. But that's what we intend to do. Remove this cap, put our airlock on after we've filled up our carboy, and put it aside for the next several months to let secondary fermentation go ahead and do its thing. Now, over the course of the year that I usually like to let my wines mature, there'll be several processes that will occur. I have standalone videos in my winemaking operations playlist on my channel page. Those being, there may be 1 or 2 more additional rackings. Later on, there'll be some degassing, back sweetening, bottling, pasteurization, corking, labeling, and finally tasting. So, next time you see me will be 12 months hence in our tasting video, which will follow after this video. But for the moment, we're going to go ahead and put this fermenter back into a nice, cool, dark place and let it do its thing. And in 12 months' time, we'll be doing the tasting video. So again, if you like what you see here, please click on that like and subscribe button, notify button, become a member, become a Patreon, help support this channel out. So I'll see you in 12 months. Okay, it's now been actually over a year since we started making our natural ferment grape wine. It's been about 13 months. Things are beginning to back up on me a little bit here, so I can't keep up a regular schedule. That having been said, before I get on to the meat of the business, these are my 5 remaining batches of wine that I still have to do videos on. There is a process involved, of course. I mean, they have to be back sweetened if necessary, degassed if necessary. Then you have to go through the process of bottling them. As an example, which has its own unique process because you have to scrape off and remove the labels, you have to wash, you have to sanitize, then you have to fill the bottles. Following that, you have to pasteurize in case you did back sweeten so that you can kill off any remaining yeast so that you don't restart fermentation from all that sugar you just added. And then they have to be, once again, using my example, they have to be, get over here, they have to be corked, they have to be labeled, and I don't cap them anymore because I'm just too busy to do it. That's pretty much the process that I have to go through with these remaining bottles, all of which I can simply say is kind of time consuming. All right, let's see, what do we have here? Natural ferment grape wine, born 9/25/2023. ABV came in at 14.18%. Now, I got to remember, this was again using just the yeast that was on the outside of the grapes that we used to make this. So, coming in at 14.18%, that ain't bad. It was back sweetened, of course, and it was pasteurized. All right. Of course, the back sweetening and the pasteurization and virtually all of the steps needed to get the wine from into here, you can find those on my winemaking playlist channel, winemaking operations playlist on my YouTube channel page, which is why you don't see me doing all that in each and every video because it's time consuming. Okay, so let's go ahead and crack this one open. I'm kind of curious. I can steady my nerves here. Okay. Oh, this is one of those oversized corks. Because I thought I was running out of corks. The number 7 corks. And I used one of the big ones, so this is going to be kind of hard. Okay, all right. Put that aside. I like wine that you make that actually smells like the fruit you used to make it. It's always a good sign. Clarity, it's more or less clear. It's a little haze to it. And yes, I'm going to pour a good glass. One of hopefully many. This off to the side. Give it the customary swirl to distribute all of the aromas around the side of the glass so that when you do the inhale, you get all of this solo bouquets of, not on this channel. All right, we made it. I made it. What does it taste like? It's got a nice little dry finish to it. I'm guessing it's the tannins were kicking in. I believe I used the teabag substitution for tannin in the making of this. Although technically I'm not really a big tannin fanatic, still it does add that bit of character since we don't oak these or anything like that. Has that nice grapiness. I like that. But as a natural ferment, that was more or less an experiment. I knew it could be done, once again. But I didn't know that because you're dealing with wild yeast, you really don't know what you're getting. If it's on the grape, you got a good chance that it was a yeast that was produced in the area that the grapes are produced in. But 14.18%, I got lucky. I like it. Yeah, I like it. If grapes are in season, not the ones that are shipped from God knows what country from God knows where, if they're produced locally and you got them in season, if you haven't tried doing a natural ferment grape wine, give it a shot. Now, with respect to the 5 remaining batches, the lime wine, the kiwi wine, a raspberry mead, I've got high hopes for that one, a pomegranate wine, and the honeydew melon wine. All of these have, I got to do this one next week. This one should have been done 2 weeks ago. Couple of weeks. Okay, I've got 2 that I've got to go through the process fairly quickly. Probably won't get a video out until end of next week, I guess. But getting back to the point, I like it. Cut back on the tannin just a little bit, but apart from that, I like it a lot. Yeah, I mean, given a choice between doing bottled grape juice and doing grape wine from grapes, this was no more of a hassle than using just bottled grape juice. Although I did have to use straining bags, and I did have to squeeze the juice out of the remaining grapes, and I did have to deal with the disposal of the what's left over from the spent grapes. But after that, it was all good. Okay, keeping it short, which is why I don't do these that often. If you like what you see here, since I've got at least another month before I put it into this channel, feel free to subscribe. Maybe I'll hit 100,000 subscribers in a few years. So until then, I'll see you.